Welcome. If you're just coming in, there's a link to the slides in the chat, and we're going to invite you to come in, join us in the slides. Welcome. Most of you know me, or all of you know me. I'm Chris Gear. I'm MyStar's professional learning coordinator, and we're going to have a just kind of get us rolling here with how do you use modeling in your classroom. So grab these are just text boxes made to look like sticky notes. So grab a text box and just, let us know, how are you using modeling right now in your classroom? And all right, lots of good stuff here. Demonstrating concepts relevant to the content we're doing. Students create models for most concepts, do them on whiteboards and gallery walks, consensus circles, excellent. Whiteboards. My principal, about 3 or 4 years, maybe 3 years before I retired, found some money somewhere and bought us classroom sets of whiteboards, and it like changed my life. So I had been doing all of this stuff on poster paper, and the whiteboards were amazing. So I'm happy to see so many people have whiteboards, system models, presentation boards, student modeling their thinking through bubble maps and scientific models, whiteboards and gallery walks. Let's see, I'm just going to move them up here, but I've been using modeling less as the year has progressed. Okay. During the share phase of MyStar. Okay, good. And a lot of times we ask kids to create those, small group models, maybe at the end of Uncover or at the very beginning of Share, and then we use them to share a lot. Conceptual model through the storyline. Yes, a lot of times we start with bits and pieces, and then we keep adding to it in a lot of our units. In the share phase, they put their models on whiteboards. Yep. All right, good. So sounds like you guys have a lot of good modeling experience. So what we want to talk about today is we'll just do a brief kind of what is a model activity, because that's always kind of interesting. People have different conceptual models of when we say modeling, what are we talking about? And then Jenny and Nell are with us today, and they are modeling instruction certified superstars. And so they're going to delve into what is modeling instruction, and then they are also MyStar superstar teachers, and so they're going to talk about how they work together. And I can attest that when I started hanging out a little bit with the modeling instruction people, I was like, oh, and the other MyStar staff too were like, oh, this is great stuff. We're going to start using this in what we do. And then hopefully we'll have a little time at the end for some Q&A if you have questions. So with me today are Nell Bilecki from Berkeley and Jenny Vandepan from Newaygo, right?
Yep.
Yes. And they have been MyStar teachers for a long time in MyStar PLFs. And they have also done modeling instruction. Not only do they do it in their classroom, but they've done professional learning for modeling instruction. And they are amazing. So you're in for a good afternoon. So let's just talk briefly. I do this often when I do my phase 2 on modeling, and think about what is a model. So, because people have different ideas in their heads when we say modeling, and before we start, really digging into it, let's think about which of these are models. So these are all pictures that came from my classroom, and they are all MyStar related. So photo A is a student was asked to, the students were asked to blow bubbles through a straw into a bowl or a cup of water, and then model and then describe what happened. Photo B is an activity from, I think it's 8-4, where kids are trying to get an idea of the mass of the solar system, and that big pile of pony beads is the sun, and the little pile is everything else. Picture C is a cell phone case from Unit 6-4, where kids are trying to protect that lasagna thing in there is the mock cell phone. And then photo D is also from 8.4, and we're learning about solar system formation. And so students were explaining some of the things they had, some of the ideas they had. So I'm going to put you in 3 rooms, breakout rooms. And when you get into the breakout room, I'm going to ask you to, say hello to the people in there, introduce yourself, chat just briefly, because you will be working with these people a couple more times today. And then team 1 will get slide 11, and team 2 will get slide 12, and team 3 will get slide 13. And then I'm just going to ask you to, as a group, kind of, if you can come to some consensus, is photo A a model and why? Is photo B a model and why? Photo C and photo D. All right. All right. So team 1, A, B, and D you thought were models, and photo C there was some discussion. Team 2 thought all of them were a model. Photo A is showing inputs and outputs. Photo B is representing the mass of the solar system with beads. Photo C is representing components with expensive components with everyday items. And D, diagrams showing step-by-step process. And team 3 also thought all of them were models for good reasons. Photo C is a physical model, right? So I would say that all of these are models. They're not all conceptual models necessarily. They're not all system models. But when you look at the NGSS framework, the framework lists models as diagrams, drawings, physical replicas, mathematical representations, which, I always forget, like, that equation, or, chemical equation or chemical representations, analogies, and computer simulations are all forms of models, and models are tools. So in science, they're used slightly differently maybe than in engineering. Engineering tends to really focus on systems or generating data to test. And then in science, we've got these more kind of conceptual things, and also communicating ideas and generating data. So the MyStar definition of models that we've worked with for a long time is a model is a representation of a phenomenon or a solution to a problem. And modeling is the process of constructing and refining a model to represent your conception of a phenomenon or solution to a problem. And just to, the reason I throw this in here is because when I was first introduced to modeling, I'd never heard of modeling in 2015 when I started working with all the engineers at MyStar. And the engineers are very focused on system models. And so they taught us all about system models. I'm like, this is amazing. And then when I started interacting with some of the modeling instruction people, in my head, every model had to be a system model. And they're like, no, not every model has to be a system model. So I like to just kind of get that idea out there that there's modeling, when you say that word, it can be a lot of different things. And then Nell and Jenny are going to kind of narrow it down and focus on the specific things that are used in modeling instruction with models. So if you're wondering, when we talk about system models, a system model is a model, but it's a type of model. It identifies the boundary, the components, the relationships, and the flow of matter and energy. And they're useful because they are predictive. So you can, if you say, well, if I take this part out, how does that change the flow of matter and energy? Or if I increase this input, how does that change what happens in the system? So they're kind of a special kind of model that's used a lot in engineering, but we can be much less uptight about modeling when we're talking about conceptual models. And so I just wanted everybody to kind of be on the same page there, because I know for me that was a bit of a struggle at first. So I'm going to turn it over now to Jenny and Nell, and they're going to start talking to you about all kinds of good ways to use modeling. Nell, I can't hear you.
It would help that my mic is turned on. So sorry about that. We are actually going to go through an introductory activity that is actually used in modeling instruction, but fits really well with Unit 7.3 for seventh graders, which is the unit on thermal energy. And we're actually going to focus in on lesson 2, if any of you guys have taught that particular lesson before, but even if you haven't, this would be the precursor activity for the Particles in Motion lab. And so this particular activity that I'm going to have you participate in is not a part of MyStar officially, but like I said, it fits really well in allowing students to start developing that conceptual model of what might be happening to that water on a very, very small scale, like on the molecular level. So what I would like you to do is you guys are going to imagine that you were a scientist back before we had microscopes. And if you could zoom in very close to an extremely small part of a water droplet, what do you think it would look like? That's the introductory question. And on your assigned whiteboard slide, so similar to what you just did in your small groups, oh, can you go back? Can you go back,
Sure.
Chris? Yes, thank you. I'm sorry.
That's
I
okay.
would like you to draw a simple model of what you think what you think a water droplet looks like on an incredibly small scale and what might be happening that you can't see. So you guys are going to go to one of the slides. So room 1, room 2, room 3, uh, well, we have a little bit more. We have more rooms than perhaps we need, but I want you to take the perspective of being a student in your classroom. So one of the key components in our modeling instruction workshops is that we participate in teacher mode versus student mode. And I would really like you to do this activity as a student. So if you were a student in a seventh grade class, how would you approach the answer to this question? Now we can take some time after the activity to debrief as a teacher, and I'm very confident that everybody, could identify what would be happening on a molecular level with water as an adult, as an adult learner, a teacher. But I really would like you to participate in this as a seventh grade student. And I'm definitely talking like middle of the road, just average student in your classroom. Not necessarily talking about the brightest of the bright or the students that have some struggles or some challenges, but just kind of your everyday typical seventh grader. If you put this, on your projector and ask them to do it, what would they come up with? Okay. Are there any questions or anything I can clarify before we break out into our rooms?
Um, we want to just remind them what they have available to do this, to make this model
Ah,
in slides.
Yes, and you know what? You definitely can use any of the drawing tools. You can cut and paste things from Google. You can use the scribble tool, the line tool, the shapes, insert text boxes as necessary because we don't have like an interactive whiteboard per se, but anything, just to kind of share your thinking and your initial thoughts on what might be happening or what you might find if you zoom in really close to that water droplet rooms. So you
Okay.
guys, welcome back. Thank you so much for creating your slides. So what we're going to do now is we're going to simulate what we would do in our classroom, and I call it circling up. You can have a whiteboarding meeting, however you want to call it is completely up to you. But essentially, all of our whiteboards would be visible for the entire class, and so the instructions that you see. The instructions that you see on the slide deck, sorry about that, um, is what I would project to the actual members of the class. Now, what we're going to do is we are going to share out our boards, but I actually have a particular order in which I would like to share out those boards. So maybe if you have like one representative who would kindly just kind of tell us your thinking behind your drawings, your representation, what different things mean. We will just kind of go through each board, and then we might revisit some other boards as we try to come to a consensus or an agreement on what are maybe some key ideas that are worthy of writing down that we should remember if we're going to kind of dig a little bit deeper about these particles and what might be going on. So I would like to start with board 2. So if we could have a representative, just kind of share with us, what did you draw and what were the things that you included? Is there a
Carmen was,
representative?
yeah, Carmen was talking about how her students probably know about that water is made of hydrogen and oxygen. Um, and the other gentleman that's with us, sorry, your name was abbreviated, said there might be impurities in the water, things that were not water in there, and like in our drinking water. But they also, she said her students probably also would know something about particles moving. And so we tried to represent each one of those ideas as something different to show in the
Okay,
molecule.
Robin, thank you so much. And if we could still stay in student mode for this presentation piece, I would really appreciate it. Can someone, maybe Robin or someone else, on this particular slide, can you tell me what you mean by impurities without using that word?
This is Carmen. We were.
Oh, Carmen, I'm so sorry.
It's okay. Um, I'm actually a fifth and sixth grade teacher, and so I'm coming right off of teaching the water cycle. So my students would have been already talked about acid rain and its effect on the environment. So that's where their impurities would have come from, because they would know that there could very well possibly be other things, ash content and whatnot, in
In the
their water
water.
cycle or their water particles. So that's where
Okay.
the conversation stemmed from.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much.
Sure.
So there might what I hear you saying is that there might be other things in the water besides just, you know, just clean water. And at the beginning, I guess maybe I didn't even clarify that. Maybe are we talking purified water, distilled water, swamp water? Like we're not exactly sure, right? What type of water we're talking about. Now, can I go to board one? Oh, awesome, awesome. So, can I have a representative from this board? Can you guys tell us about your board and what are some things that you're representing here that if we zoomed in on that water particle, we might see?
Sure. We were thinking
Lucas, thank you.
that as a water droplet itself is kind of somewhat spherical, a little bit more kind of like drop-like, that each of the particles inside of it are probably similar. And so we put down kind of like small circles, some circles that are a little bit bigger, some because some droplets are bigger than other droplets.
Okay,
Some droplets are a little bit more oval, so they're a little bit more like extended, kind of like if a droplet was falling. Water is usually blue, so we made our circles blue.
fair
Uh,
enough.
and usually we don't see droplets moving kind of unless they're like falling. And so
Mhm.
we didn't have them moving or adding other arrows is all. Um, and so yeah.
Okay, Lucas, fantastic. So, you know what? I really like that idea that you kind of kept them blue, because that's normally, you know, how we interpret the color of water. And you said that the sizes, you were kind of thinking in terms of the actual water droplet. That, you know, when that droplet falls and it splatters, you might have a larger droplet or a smaller droplet. Is that fair? Is that what you were assuming when you drew the different sizes? You were talking about the droplet itself.
Yes.
Okay.
Go with that.
And yes, thank you, Lucas. And something else I do know, I did notice that you mentioned or you said you use the word particle or particles. Can you clarify that? What did you mean when you said that word?
Hmm.
And did you represent it in your diagram in any way?
Uh, well, I think I'm implying, so again, as student, I'm
Yeah.
implying that a particle is kind of like a thing or a thing of matter that we find around us.
Lucas, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your board. I'd like to go now to board three. Okay. Now, can I have a representative share their board? What were you thinking here when you guys put this board together?
Well, we know that we've heard of this thing called molecules, and we know it's like a smaller part of something. And so we think a water droplet is like smaller, basically smaller water droplets. And we know we always use the term H2O, so we know the H stands for hydrogen and the O stands for oxygen. So basically smaller molecules inside the droplet.
Okay, so if we were just kind of if we were to kind of go back to board one for a moment, are you also saying that you kind of think there might be these particles, like if we kind of keep going deeper and deeper and deeper into this water, that we might find these things that you're calling like these smaller parts, these hydrogens and these oxygens?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a reason why you represented them as circles?
We just thought a molecule was in the shape of a circle.
Oh,
That's
okay.
just what we thought.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much. Now, I would like to go back to board two. I'd like to go back to board two. Now, board three kind of identified this idea of like hydrogens and oxygens, and board two also. You guys had that written down on your board, and I noticed that you drew them as circles, but in parentheses, you kind of have this H2O. What were you trying to say there?
We
Carmen, thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
We represented a water molecule, the hydrogen and oxygen, together because we kind of got in a discussion about cohesion and adhesion and a couple other things, and we realized we were going teacher mode and not student mode. So we left it together as just one molecule.
Okay, so are we implying here that maybe like these hydrogens and these oxygens are connected in some way, or are they separated? How did you guys envision that?
I don't know that we did.
Okay. Now, I'm wondering if I go back to team three real quick, did you guys envision, because you also had H2O kind of together, is there a reason why you kind of put them together or you connected them in some way? Or did you keep, or did you see that somewhere?
We
Why did you
we
guys put it that way?
we saw that in sixth grade when we were learning about digestion and we learned about molecules and atoms. And we know that the red was hydrogen, I think, and the white, I don't remember, but it had those.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And now going back to room two, you guys actually drew arrows and you labeled it particle motion. Can you share what your thoughts were with that? What are you trying to express? What if we can't see these things because all we see is that water droplet and some are smaller and some are bigger, if we zoom in, what do you mean when you have those arrows there and you're kind of drawing them in a particular direction and you labeled it particle motion?
As students, we just learned that in a previous lesson that particles are moving. And so I know when like I drop food color into some water, it moves around. And so they're not like pieces of like building blocks. They don't just stay put.
Okay, so I mean that's so weird, isn't it? That's something that we can't see is actually moving, and it might be moving at different speeds. So I want to thank everybody. You guys did an incredible job on your whiteboards. And now, if we just kind of recap, what were some key ideas or some things that most groups kind of agreed to or included on their board? If we're going to kind of study water, use water as a way to study thermal energy, what are some things that we might be able to agree on with what we might find on an incredibly small scale?
That we'll find hydrogen and oxygen.
Okay. So water is made up of hydrogen and oxygen. And I know we used a word, we used molecules. Okay, it's made up of hydrogen and oxygen. What's something else about those hydrogens and oxygens that we might be able to say? What is going on with those hydrogens and those oxygens, those individual atoms? Like, are they just kind of hanging out in the water, or are they, um,
Somehow they're connected to each other.
okay,
Maybe.
yeah, so maybe like right now, at the beginning, we kind of think that they are connected in some way, maybe they, maybe there's a connection there. Maybe they have a structure of some sort. Okay. And is there anything else that a team represented or something else that we might be able to identify that, kind of hard because we can't see, but based on the boards? And Chris, I'm sorry, can you just go back to the boards just so we can see it one more time? Is there anything else that we might want to represent that right now, initially, we kind of think this might be going on with the water molecules? Oh no, silence. It's the end of the day. It's sixth hour. What else? What else might?
Maybe they're moving a little bit.
Oh, so it's possible that they're actually moving, even though we can't see them. Okay. So now you guys did a fantastic job, and we will kind of switch over from student mode to teacher mode at this time. I'll kind of like, you guys are off the hook now. But what we would do is we would use this introductory class consensus as a jumping off point to go into the particles in motion lab, where now, we will gather evidence on what happens when we change the temperature of the water, and if we can collect evidence to support that those molecules might be moving slower or faster depending on the temperature. But this is one way to introduce this idea or get the kids talking about water, molecules, particles, things of that nature. And, of course, this might be posted in the class. I would definitely use their language, and things that they come up with, like during that circle meeting. But these are essentially the key ideas that we want them, that I would want them to come away with. That water, now, I will tell you in class, like, if we do this with seventh graders, every single board will have the germs, the bacteria, all of those sort of impurities that I saw on board too. And I was like, yes, yes, right? Because that is an entry level answer that every student sort of feels comfortable sharing, during our spider web. And you'll notice that I kind of started with one board in particular, and then we went to another board and then to another board. If I had 4, 5, or 6 boards, I would seed them and sequence them appropriately so that the teams that shared first absolutely have valid answers. They have valid drawings, but we would work our way up from very entry level responses, such as germs and bacteria, to more sophisticated answers where teams will, definitely try to draw the hydrogen and oxygen, atoms. Some of them will try to put them in that sort of Mickey Mouse connected shape. And then some teams will actually draw the arrows or they'll add swishies to show, the actual molecular speed. And so we'll go in order. We'll sequence them for this particular activity because not all of the teams will come up with the fact that they are moving or the fact that they are connected, that they do have a structure, or some may not even show that water is made up of those tiny particles. Any questions, or how did you feel, or anything that, any expectations or?
Well, one question I had is there wasn't necessarily consensus on whether there was movement in the drawings, movement of the molecules inside, and there wasn't necessarily consensus that they were hydrogen and oxygen. So do you try to come to consensus even if, like, do you say, does everyone agree? How do you
Yes. Now,
Okay.
absolutely, I would come to consensus in my class, but also you have to keep in mind that, we are working like with maybe 5, 6, or 7 teams. And so after, we talk about each of these stages, we would say, okay, like, is this something that, we are agreeing to? Is this something that, we generally think should go on our consensus board, and I would come to a consensus with the entire class. What we did here was just a modified version, but I absolutely would do that consensus, with my students. So yes.
And it gives you an opportunity to discuss what is a consensus. Does that mean all the scientists in the world have to agree? No, the fact of the matter is that most scientists, or we go with the majority, so it lends itself to a conversation for that as well, which is really nice for our students to hear those kinds of words.
Right. And you know what? There might be students who, don't necessarily agree 100% on a particular drawing or visualization or representation. However, like one thing I like to say, is like, can you live with it? For right now, can we just live with it? The way that it's written, the way that, we have it identified, can you live with it? And, most of them will say, yeah, it's okay, for right now. And we might have to gather additional evidence. We might have to do something more, to get everyone on board. But in a classroom, yes, I would absolutely do that consensus.
So now here, what is modeling instruction? So we set this up on purpose for you to experience the activity first before we dive into what we're really talking about at a teacher level. And part of modeling instruction is the belief that you do the activity before you learn the content, the scientific content, and then you learn the content before you actually assign that vocabulary to it. So that is kind of how we structured this as well. So what is modeling instruction? We'll go to the next slide here. All right, so you guys talked about all sorts of different models. What we are focusing on is that conceptual model, the ideas that we individually hold in our minds that aligns with the consensus view of science. And you can see on the screen here an example of different levels of these conceptual models represented in a way we say making the thinking visible. You may have heard that. So we have the examples here, just something that's super elementary and getting a little more detailed. And then you can see that last model there is more process-based, but more complex, still making that thinking visible. Now, conceptual models are important because there are a lot of traditional science courses, including at Harvard, where they know a lot of information, but actually the concept has escaped them. So I'm going to have Chris play this short video for you. We'll talk about it after.
Graduates of Harvard and MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology.
We are the premier engineering and science institution in the world.
Do you think you could light a bulb with a battery and wire? Do you think you could light a bulb with a battery and wire?
Yeah.
Light a bulb with a battery and a wire. Maybe. Yes.
All right.
Definitely.
Do you think you can light a bulb with a battery and a wire?
Battery and wire? Well, yes, why not?
Okay.
Definitely.
Okay, can you do that?
The interesting part about the batteries and bulbs question is that people always predict that they can do it. Students say, of course I can do this.
Any hints I should have here?
Teachers say, of course my students can do this.
Ow! Do you know why that didn't work?
I have no idea.
Battery could be dead, the bulb could be bad, I'm hooking it up totally incorrectly. I'm not an electrical engineer, I'm a mechanical engineer. But if I had to guess, I would say it's operator error.
Okay.
I know it's possible, but I don't know how to do it.
It's only after failing that you begin to get upset with the question and think, well, maybe it's a trick question, maybe this has something to do with manipulating the wires. They couldn't hold all the wires together.
You don't have a current if you only have one wire. You need a closed circuit.
But that's not the case.
Oh, well, if I do it with a little light bulb, I just do this. In which case, the light just lights up.
It goes to the fundamental understanding of electricity. If one cannot light a light bulb with a battery and wire, then everything built upon those basic ideas has problems.
We've always assumed that if teachers teach, students will learn.
You can't assume that what's blatantly obvious to you and has always been blatantly obvious to you is going to be that way to somebody else, especially a kid. And that's where you have to stop, regroup, and say, wait a second, is this really as self-evident as you'd like to think it is?
Sometimes the simplest problems in science defy intuition, and the most basic technology is surprisingly difficult to grasp. Is it because we weren't taught? Or is it because of something deeper?
Doesn't matter like what touches
Something about the way we think.
You can go ahead and stop it there, Chris. Oh, okay, good. I was afraid that my little stop thing didn't work. All right, so you can see right there that there are people who are very educated, and the one woman said, using words like you need a circuit, you need, so the current needs 2 wires. They know things. They know words. Do they know concept? Apparently not. So that's why modeling is so important, because it forces students to know the concept first. And they do that through experiencing it first without knowing what they're doing to begin with. Could you go to the next slide, please, Chris? All right, so modeling instruction uses that basis for their pedagogy. It places the emphasis on the construction and application of conceptual models, understanding first. It's the central aspect of learning and doing science based on a physical phenomena. A way of teaching that focuses on producing students who can think, who can reason and understand those concepts at a deeper level instead of just memorizing the word and not being able to tell you what it means. A method of learning which uses has students present, but also justify, and that's where that comes in. They justify their thinking and their conclusions. We did a circle meeting, so it was an oral presentation, but this can be done in writing as well. And they can evaluate each other's conceptual models of what's going on in a phenomena through comparing the data with their classmates. So it comes with a target conceptual model. So the idea of particle movement for energy, for example, is the conceptual model we're going for. But it starts with a phenomenon. In MyStar, the phenomenon is written in the modeling curriculum, which is separate from MyStar. It starts with a paradigm lab, where they are experiencing firsthand and taking observations and measurements in a specific lab that was designed to drive them towards this target model. The storyline is strategically sequenced in modeling instruction. So it might start out with something that you're just observing. And whether the students are right or wrong at the very beginning, it doesn't matter, because the next lesson is designed to hone in their experience, to draw conclusions. And then the activity after that is designed to specify their experiences even farther and tighten that up. And it's called the modeling cycle, where they develop a model, their conceptual understanding, they revise their understanding when they learn new things, and then they practice their understanding in what's called model deployment and applying it in new situations. Part of this is teacher facilitated talk strategies and making their thoughts or their thinking visible, like on this whiteboard here, and how now strategically drove that conversation. Now, this is modeling instruction, but it marries with MyStar perfectly, and that's what we're going to get into next. How does MyStar or modeling instruction and MyStar work together?
Jen, before you do that slide, can I show my little stickies?
Oh yeah, yep, that's right. You
Because
didn't get a chance to do that.
I did, because you know what? I got caught up in the moment and I forgot to show these. So, I mean, if you can kind of look at these, like as you guys were doing your whiteboarding, I was actually taking notes on the different things that you were writing, the different diagrams and questions that I wanted to ask you, in a sequential order, so that we could work through, the kind of introductory ideas all the way up to the more sophisticated understanding before we came to consensus. So a lot of that background work is done behind the scenes, as the kids are whiteboarding. So, you might be walking around the class and they might think that you are just kind of checking in or hovering over their shoulder, but really you are taking your own notes so that you know whose group, to ask first, second, third in this particular activity if you're doing a sequencing lesson.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
All right, so if we go to the next slide, I'm going to show you two images. The one on the right-hand side you are familiar with because you're here. It is the MyStar cycle, like the 5E model, with the anchoring experience and covering your ideas, share your ideas, connect your ideas, and then check your progress. The modeling cycle has a series of developing that conceptual model and then applying it and then coming back and redefining that conceptual model when new content is learned and then practicing that in an activity. So we're doing that 5 times in the learning cycle for modeling, and we're doing it, the 5 times here in the MyStar model. So if we look at actual plans, let's go ahead to the next slide. They match. What you see here in yellow outlined is the modeling instruction lesson overview. So there's a pre-lab discussion and a lab investigation with that paradigm lab we're talking about. The whiteboard meeting like we just had is the post-lab discussion. And then we practice that with worksheets, taking the quizzes or those assessments. And if you need to continue on with another lab and then eventually a unit test. But look at with those splashes, I connected it to those steps that are in MyStar built in already for you. What's nice about this is you can see all of those steps, but also oh shoot, I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. I'm going to say real quick though on a timeout, the apply right there was something that we added when we modelized the MyStar units. Nell and I had done that. That is like a share 2, for example. So once I saw apply, I got sidetracked. That's like the share 2 when you do an uncover 2 and a share 2 again. But those whiteboard strategies work perfectly in the share phase. So instead of just having a simple conversation in the class, you can have them whiteboarding and do the whiteboard meeting. And that's where it works well, where modeling does a good job with that share phase. But MyStar does very well with the anchor. Instead of having just a lab plopped to you in the middle of nowhere, MyStar comes in with that phenomenon based. So what I feel like MyStar can be beefed up with in their share portion, modeling instruction does that, but where MyStar is really good at is providing that phenomenon in the natural world that the modeling instruction is missing. So when you blend the two together, you get the absolute best. We'll go on to the next slide. Okay, we will have time for this. I'm excited. Okay,
I am too.
Okay, so with this here, you really have to build a culture of trust and respect from the very beginning of the year. If you are going to allow students to share like you did openly and to have their idea, to justify their ideas and to be thinking critically of others' ideas, but in a respectful way. So we are going to do a modeling activity, but focus on building culture. And the way to do that is with like low stakes. At the beginning of the year, I use the mystery cube. It needs no science knowledge in order to be confident in what observations you're making. Some of you may use the mystery tube or heard of that, but this is a TED Ed puzzle, and there's a whole bunch of them out there, and they're short and they're fun. They're logic puzzles. So we're going to look at a low stakes logic puzzle, which you need no science background for, in order to work together to create one of your whiteboard slides, making your thinking visible to solve this riddle. So on the next slide, it is a little bit bigger, Chris. So she's going to play that. And after that, we're going to send you out into breakout rooms. You're going to work together to solve your riddle in your breakout rooms. But remember to represent your thinking and how you come up with your solution on your assigned whiteboard slide. So let's watch that video first.
Can you guys hear it? Yes. Okay. Let me make sure.
You and 9 other individuals have been captured by super intelligent alien overlords. The aliens think humans look quite tasty, but their civilization forbids eating highly logical and cooperative beings. Unfortunately, they're not sure whether you qualify, so they decide to give you all a test. Through its universal translator, the alien guarding you tells you the following. You will be placed in a single file line facing forward in size order, so that each of you can see everyone lined up ahead of you. You will not be able to look behind you or step out of line. Each of you will have either a black or a white hat on your head, assigned randomly, and I won't tell you how many of each color there are. When I say to begin, each of you must guess the color of your hat, starting with the person in the back and moving up the line. And don't even try saying words other than black or white, or signaling some other way, like intonation or volume. You'll all be eaten immediately. If at least 9 of you guess correctly, you'll all be spared.
You have 5 minutes to discuss and come up with a plan, and then I'll line you up, assign your hats, and we'll begin.
Can you think of a strategy guaranteed to save everyone?
All right, so can you think of a strategy? Working with your group, go ahead and talk. Now, you guys have a link to the slides, so if you need to watch the details of the video in your group, you can do that on your own. But 5 minutes to figure out what strategy would you use and create your assigned whiteboard on the following slides to represent your thinking and solution.
All right, everybody's back.
Oh, okay, you guys, I am so sorry. I didn't mean to kill you all right now. So I guess we didn't survive the alien invasion. Looking back, this is fun to do, but not after you've taught all day and are forced to think logically and come up with a strategy. That was poor thinking on my part, but it is fun when you feel a little more energized. So it looks like starting with room 1 here, they're getting started. But, I think I will use the universal language translator and just give all of you a pass because, you teach middle school and it's the end of the day. I think they'll understand. Go to room 2. Room 2, they had a diagram perfect and we're stating some of the points. Each will have to remember what the person before said. Yep, that's a good strategy there. In room 3, well, RIP. That's okay. Again, the aliens will spare you because you're a middle school teacher. So let's see what they said. There's an answer for us here.
Yeah.
The key is that the person at the back of the line who can see everyone else's hats can use the words black or white to communicate some coded information. So what meaning can be assigned to those words that will allow everyone else to deduce their hat colors? It can't be the total number of black or white hats. There are more than 2 possible values. But what does have 2 possible values is that number's parity. That is, whether it's odd or even. So the solution is to agree that whoever goes first will, for example, say black if he sees an odd number of black hats, and white if he sees an even number of black hats. Let's see how it would play out if the hats were distributed like this. The tallest captive sees 3 black hats in front of him, so he says black, telling everyone else he sees an odd number of black hats. He gets his own hat color wrong, but that's okay, since you're collectively allowed to have one wrong answer. Prisoner 2 also sees an odd number of black hats, so she knows hers is white and answers correctly. Prisoner 3 sees an even number of black hats, so he knows that his must be one of the black hats the first 2 prisoners saw. Prisoner 4 hears that and knows that she should be looking for an even number of black hats, since 1 was behind her. But she only sees 1, so she deduces that her hat is also black. Prisoners 5 through 9 are each looking for an odd number of black hats, which they see, so they figure out that their hats are white. Now it all comes down to you at the front of the line. If the 9th prisoner saw an odd number of black hats, that can only mean one thing. You'll find that this strategy works for any possible arrangement of the hats. The first prisoner has a 50% chance of giving a wrong answer about his own hat, but the parity information he conveys allows everyone else to guess theirs with absolute certainty. Each begins by expecting to see an odd or even number of hats of the specified color. If what they count doesn't match, that means their own hat is that color. And every time this happens, the next person in line will switch the parity they expect to see. So that's it. You're free to go. It looks like these aliens will have to go hungry, or find some less logical organisms to abduct.
Okay, a parody. Yeah, maybe that was a little high for today. But anyways, there are fun ways you can use whiteboarding that can be fun and get your students comfortable with. Also, several ways. We did a circle meeting for the big concepts, but if you want to spice up your gallery walk, here are some ways that you can look through on your own to interact with the information on the whiteboards in a gallery walk style. So, moving on. Chris, it's up to you now.
All right. Yeah. So we are about done. Thanks so much, Nell and Jenny, for sharing with us. And I hope you all got a little bit of kind of inspiration and picked up a few maybe fun things. I will tell you that Nell and Jenny have some other things that are easier than the black and white hats they were talking about that they use with their kids.
Yes.
And so maybe if they share them with me, I'll put them in the one of the emails in the follow-up so that if you want to try something with your kids, they're not overwhelmed, because that was hard. So we have one more learning series coming up, and that's it for our PL for the rest of this school year. Of course, we'll have lots of stuff starting in August and then through September and stuff, but we have one more, and it is our preview of some new things that we're going to release over the summer, some CER stuff and a couple of off-the-shelf lessons and a few other things. And then we are going to fold in some place-based resources, some things that you can get for free if you plan and ask early, from Eagle, and some like field trip grants and things like that. So just stuff that, you might want to be thinking about planning for next fall. And I was telling these guys, after a while in my career, I learned that I would try to plan like my first week back before I left in June and make the copies and everything so then I could really enjoy my summer. So it might be a little motivation. So hopefully maybe we'll see you again before the end of the year. We have our private Facebook group that Barb manages and posts something fun and interesting every day. So if you're a Facebook person, feel free to click there and join us. That's all I have for you. It's 4:58. So thanks so much for spending your afternoon with us. We'll get the slides and the agenda and the video recording out to you within the next week or so. And I'll send you the sketch stuff. And we'll hang out for a few minutes if there's something that you want to ask specifically. And if not, please, log out, enjoy the rest of your afternoon. And again, thanks for being with us.